Hello, everyone. I'm very grateful to be here today to talk about 3D web development and introduce Three.js. Before I discovered 3D web development, I wanted to do creative projects with code, but I didn't know where to start, which path to take, or which tool to use, until I discovered this website. So this website was created by Bruno Simon, and it is his portfolio website. And it was really mind-blowing for me to see this on the web. And as you can see, he uses a physics engine to simulate the collisions. And you can interact with a lot of things like the projects that he created and some games that you can play. And also you can appreciate his unique sense of style and personality. And it really made me motivated to learn about this cool website and how it was made. So today my goal is to motivate you to try 3D web development with Three.js. And so you may ask, why should I try it? So you should try it for 3 reasons. First, it's an effective form of communication. Second, it's powerful and easy to use. And third, it's creative and fun. So for the remainder of the slides, I'm going to be talking about these 3 points. So you may have heard the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But a 3D interactive application is worth 1,000 pictures. So essentially, you have an image here, and you get a lot of data from it. But on the right, you get a lot more data based on the way you interact with it. So in that way, by having a bit more data available for your user, you're able to clearly communicate your idea. So this is a great example of effective communication. So here you can see there's a lot of things you can interact with. And if you were to build this website like on a 2D format while keeping the same functionality, it would be very overwhelming for the user and also be very complicated to develop. But in 3D, it's very easy to develop. And so by having 3D, you're able to effectively communicate your idea or your complex ideas. And this is all possible because of Three.js. Three.js was released in 2010 by Ricardo Cabello. And since its release, it's been maintained by a lot of developers, and it has a robust community and very rapid growth. And Three.js uses WebGL. WebGL is a web graphics library, and it allows the developer access to the graphics pipeline. And today it's a web standard, and it's available on all major browsers. And WebGL uses the OpenGL shader language to draw 3D elements. So what's great about Three.js is it allows you to draw 3D elements using the JavaScript library without having to understand OpenGL shader language or the complex math that involves WebGL. So Three.js is very easy to use. You just have to imagine you're a movie director. So what does a movie director need? A movie director needs a stage. They need a camera. They need a screen to see what they recorded. And lastly, they need an actor. So Three.js basically works the same way. So this is a hello cube, and this is the code for how to make it. And so you import the library first, and you have your scene, which is basically your stage, and everything in your scene, everything in your 3D app goes in your scene. And so you have a camera, and right here it's a perspective camera, and there's lots of cameras to choose from. And you have a screen, and this one is going to be your WebGL renderer, and you set the size of the renderer, and in this case it's the full viewport, and you add the DOM element to the body. And WebGL uses the canvas element, and that's the only way it works. And our actor here is the mesh, which is the cube. And the mesh takes in a geometry and a material. And we have a box geometry and a mesh normal material. And the last thing we have to do is just animate it. So we call the request animation frame. And we increment, with small increments, we rotate it within each frame, and we render it in each frame using the scene and the camera. And so that's roughly around 60 frames per second. And so it looks very smooth. So here's where it gets fun. So these 4 elements, the scene, the camera, the renderer, and the mesh, you can modify them to create anything, basically anything from your imagination. So here are some examples of how you can do that. This is an example of how you can modify the scene. So you can add lights, environment maps, shadows. So in this case, we have a spotlight, and it's rotating around this mesh, and it's casting a shadow. So it gives it texture and a lot of detail. So here you have an example of how you can modify the camera. So on the left, you have a first-person shooter type of experience. And on the right, you have like a third-person chase camera type of experience. And there's lots of other ways you can modify the camera. And this is an example of how you can modify the renderer. And you can do that using post-processing effects. And so how you do that is, after a render is complete, you take an effect and you apply an effect to it, and then you display the new result. And other than the ones that you see up here, there's lots of ones that other people have created, and you can also create your own custom ones. And lastly, you can modify the mesh by creating your own 3D models using a 3D modeling software like Blender. And this is like a work in progress that I'm working on, and it's a 3D medical app that allows patients to see their cancer diagnosis and their surgical treatment. So what's cool about 3D modeling and using other software is you can import the geometry and the material from the 3D modeling software, and other things like animations and rigging and stuff. You can directly use it in Three.js. And so we saw that 3D is an effective form of communication. It's powerful and easy to use, and it's creative and fun. So how do you get started? You can get started by visiting the Three.js.org documentation page. And here you can find the entire library, and it lays out everything with like lots of example code. And there's also a lot of featured websites where you can see you get inspiration from. And the second one is a Three.js journey by Bruno Simon. And this is a great place to learn everything about Three.js. It's a good tutorial. And it's very beginner friendly. And the last one is a Greenville Three.js meetup group that I started. And it's a great place for anyone interested locally to come together and learn from each other and build things together. And this is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions, and can build stuff together. Thank you. Appreciate it.